As an African architect working mainly from South Africa into the continent, energy efficiency means a new way of thinking about what energy should be costing and how we deal with it. South Africa has, for a number of reasons, had ridiculously low energy prices, or maybe we've enjoyed ridiculously low energy prices. So South Africa has been one of the countries where we haven't had to think about energy much. It's been too cheap to bother to use it properly, and this is changing. So energy efficiency for me as an architect means actually joining the rest of the world where energy has been an issue for a long time. There's a perception, I think also a self-perception in South Africa, that we have been uninterested in maybe the environment and the bigger questions behind energy supply and how resources are used. But I think it's disingenuous. I think in a capitalist world, good behavior is always forced on people. So better performing buildings in Europe, for example, have been lobbied for by industries who sell products into those better performing buildings. I don't think instinctively Europeans or Americans or anybody in the world or Asian people are necessarily better people and instinctively want to use energy better. I think it's just that their producing industries have been lobbying for better performing buildings for a long time. So energy efficiency is in South Africa, let's say in the building industry, about a different way, legislation being changed through pressure by manufacturing enterprises who want to sell more products into better performing buildings, because better performing buildings that use less energy are made of more components. They have more elements in them, they have more layers to them, and they are more complicated to design and build. So energy efficiency is really about a different way of thinking and joining the world in realizing that energy is much more expensive than we in South Africa have thought it should cost. So the question of what is at stake is maybe a simple one. If we don't start using things like electricity or energy generally better, it will simply run out on us. What is at stake is a kind of a supply side shortage scenario where, regardless of what we want, things that we need for the functioning of certainly city life will just not be available anymore, and will be available to less and less people if we don't start dealing with it properly and more responsibly and more equitably. Africa is certainly marked by unequal access to resources, and energy is just one of those resources that is unequally available to people. So what's at stake is a big picture future where we can either have similar access for more and more people, or less and less access for smaller and smaller subgroups. So it really is a question of the bigger have and have not divide. It's that simple. That's what is at stake. Does an energy efficient building cost more than a non-efficient building? Yes, it costs more to construct. So as an architect, we're in the game of making buildings. We are aware that maybe over time they cost less to run if they run responsibly. But at a building level, quite simply, a better performing building costs more because more materials go into it. There are more physical things, like 2 layers of glass simply cost more than 1 layer of glass, and 3 layers of glass cost more than 2. There are weight issues, there are logistics issues, there are performance issues, insulation, and just better construction actually, higher levels of skill, more compliance, more checking. So from a CapEx point of view, yes, a better performing building costs more to build. Does it cost less to run is a different question. There are many studies, of course, that prove that the CapEx is nothing against the OpEx, the operational costs. But again, in South Africa, there isn't that much data on it yet. At a bigger picture, if one looks at questions of wellness and well-performing buildings, there's a much bigger picture, because if the capex cost of a building to build it is a factor of 1, the OpEx costs over the life of a building, let's say over 20 to 25 years, are probably a factor of 10. The payroll of people in the building and their wellness and the cost of attracting and keeping good staff, for example, for a corporation, have a factor of 100. So between building the building at a factor of 1, operating it at a factor of 10, and paying people who live in that building and are affected by wellness and efficiency and good use of resources and a healthy environment is a factor of 100, it's a no-brainer that one should pay a little bit more on the factor of 1 for a well-performing building. That's really it.